The hearing will come to order. This hearing of the Committee on Financial Services is called pursuant to our jurisdiction over trade and financial services. And we deal with the very important subject of the ability of the American financial services industry to do business in China. I and others have talked about the unhappiness among a lot of Americans at what seems to them to be an uneven deal that they're getting, in which there's a great deal of growth and they don't participate. And there is also this concern that many have in America about an increasing problem in the trade balance, a perception that the world's rules aren't as fair as they should be. Now, I'm aware of the fact that in the world in general, nothing is ever fair in the eyes of many people. We have a very interesting physical phenomenon that I have noted in my years on this committee. Namely, we have within the country, but also internationally in the academic field, something that you would have thought defied logic and maybe gravity, and that is a constantly declining playing field. People often talk about how the playing field is not level. And in all the years in which I have heard people talk about an unlevel playing field, I have never heard anyone who was at the top. It is a playing field which always slants against individuals. So apparently it is, as I said, just as we have in economics constantly downward sloping curves in some functions, we have a constantly downward sloping playing field. But just because people often unfairly invoke something doesn't mean they're always wrong. And it does seem to me that the playing field between the United States and China in terms of openness of each one's economy to the other is in fact unlevel. The Chinese clearly benefit enormously from the openness of the American economy and from the prosperity of Americans. It's not entirely one-sided. Obviously, Americans get some benefit from this as well. But the American economy, it seems to me, is far more open to those areas of Chinese economic activity where they have the advantage than the reverse. And that in areas where Americans have an expertise and an ability to compete that exceeds that of the Chinese, they have been much less willing to allow that to operate than they are to take advantage of it when it goes the other way. And a one-sided invocation of the principle of openness and of free trade is not only, in my judgment, flawed intellectually, but it's deeply flawed politically. And the Chinese should understand that until and unless they do a better job of practicing in China what they preach within the United States, namely openness in terms of your economy, even when another economy might outperform you, they will continue to run into resistance. Now, I've joined with some others in the Ways and Means Committee and the Energy and Commerce Committee in our concern about China currency. And I know we'll hear today assertions that these things are linked, that part of the problem that the Chinese talk about when they say they can't fully allow economic activity by our financial sector is in part a self-inflicted wound because of the manipulation of their currency. But there will be the concerns about the currency. There will be other concerns. There are, of course, geopolitical concerns that are not directly relevant here. But the Chinese should understand, until there is more openness to American financial services activity, until there is a serious effort in China to protect intellectual property, not the jurisdiction of this committee, but relevant, the notion that a society as controlled as China, where you can, in fact, regulate the number of children people have and censor the Internet, which we were told was supposed to be uncensorable, but you can't stop people from massively pirating other people's intellectual property, does not make sense. So this is, and we're told, well, don't be protectionist and don't be restrictionist. And those are legitimate debates to have elsewhere. Today, we are arguing, I believe, to the Chinese that if they wish to maintain the kind of political support they will need in America for them to be able to continue to enjoy advantages in the American economy, there's going to have to be a great deal more reciprocity than there has been to date. I'll now recognize the gentleman from Louisiana.